Wildfires is a very significant danger that the United States faces, especially portions of the Southwest and the Pacific Northwest. The Storm Prediction Center, located in Norman, Oklahoma, while they mostly focus on forecasting for severe weather, they also forecast for fire weather each and every day. Every single day, multiple times a day, they will release a map of the United States outlining the areas that they feel faces the highest risk of fires for that day. And on their website, you can find this map, and they outline 3 different areas of risk: elevated, critical, and extreme, with extreme being the highest form of risk available on this map. And on their website right here, we see that there are multiple areas today that are outlined in these areas of risk, and there is one large area of extreme risk that is in New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas as well. But what exactly goes into the Storm Prediction Center determining what areas get what type of risk each and every day? Well, also on this page, there are 3 different maps over on the left that you can click to see what the conditions are in that area. There's one map that is permanently centered over the Southwest United States as an area that faces a lot of wildfires and is not always has a high risk, but generally it's one of the areas that faces the most every year, along with the Pacific Northwest, another region that another map on this website is permanently centered over. But then the third map, which is the one on the bottom on the main page, brings you to the floater. And the floater is centered every day. It's a new map in a new location of the United States, and it's going to be centered over where SPC has outlined the highest risk of wildfires for that day. So today, since the extreme risk is in New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, that is where this map is centered over today. And now on this map, you can click on various things over here on the left, and that will show you different types of weather variables and even some indices that the SPC uses to determine what risk is facing this area. Over here on the top, we have the temperature in the air. We do see multiple areas in Texas that have a temperature in excess of 75 degrees, and that is as of 12 p.m. Central Time. And then also we have 3 p.m. Central Time, where we do see some areas will get up into the 80s later on today. And then 6 p.m. Central Time, so once it does begin to cool off, and 9 p.m. Central Time as well. Now, all of these variables on this page are available at all of those times, and every time you go there, it will be updating constantly throughout the day as well. Now, the other variables that are available on this page, we do have the relative humidity, which is a very important aspect to take into consideration when dealing with wildfires, because the drier an area is, the more likely it is for things in that area to be able to burn. And we do see multiple areas within Texas especially have very low relative humidities. Everywhere where this yellow slashed line goes through has relative humidities of under 20, and multiple areas will have relative humidities of under 15 as well in that area. Now, those are the areas where it is very dry, which means everything in those areas is very likely to be able to burn. And then another very important component to take into consideration is the wind. Now, if the wind is too fast, it will be blowing fast enough that it can actually put out the fires. And if it's blowing too slow, it won't be able to help it spread that much. The sweet spot is right around 30 miles per hour. And on this map, we do see multiple areas here where these purple and pink barbs are, of the purple representing 25 and the pink barbs representing 30 miles per hour. So right around that sweet spot that helps those fires spread across the region. And now they have combined all of these weather variables into a couple of indices on this page. One of them is the Haynes Index. The Haynes Index tells you how likely a fire is to spread once it forms. It doesn't tell you how likely the fire is to form. We'll get to that in just a second. This tells you how likely it is to spread. This scale ranges from 2 to 6. 6 being the most likely to spread. So when it's at 6, that means the area is very dry, it has a good wind, and it has a lot of fuel that can burn as well. So we see a lot of areas here, especially in the Texas Panhandle and into Oklahoma, that have this Haynes Index value of 6, which means any fire that does form there has an increased likelihood of being able to spread and be able to burn very quickly and burn multiple acres very rapidly and be quite dangerous. And now, but how do we know when the fires are going to form? We know how they can spread, but there's another index on this page, the Fosberg Index. The Fosberg Index, which is also known as the Fire Weather Index, this tells us how likely it is for the fire to form in the first place. And we do see here the scale ranges from 0 to 100, with 100 being the most likely to form. So we do see a couple areas here that have a risk of 80 on the Fosberg scale, and a lot of areas in the 70s as well. So quite a large risk for those fires to form. And now on this website you can also overlay the Haynes values on top of the Fosberg values. So we see both of those areas where there's an 80 risk on the Fosberg scale also has a 6 on the Haynes scale. So not only is the fire very likely to form there, it's also very likely to spread, and spread very rapidly as well. And then one last thing that you can do on this webpage here is there's also land use. So you can see the land use as well, where you see those browns. There's not too much vegetation because a fire needs fuel. It needs something to burn. It can't just burn the air around us. It needs trees, bushes, shrubs, grass, etc. It needs things that can burn. And all of these things are very dry. As we saw, there's very low relative humidity. Plus the region is in a state of drought as well. So all of these areas are quite dry, and we see all of this green on the map here. That's where all the vegetation is. So there is a lot of fuel for any fire that would be able to form as well. So there's an increased risk of the fire to form, an increased risk of the fire to spread, and plenty of fuel for the fire to burn as well, which is why when you go to the SPC's main page here for their fire weather, we do see that whole area of extreme risk centered over northern Texas and portions of Oklahoma, and even a little bit in southern New Mexico, as well as all of those factors taken into consideration give them, the SPC, a good feeling that a lot of areas in that area could face an increased risk of fires today.